Can you talk more about the history and stories about Hanging Rock?
I don't know too much about that. Just that it would be a negative area that humans aren't meant to occupy.
Okay. Is there a portal there?
I think there's a portal in this room. Yeah, there's portals and doorways in both negative and positive areas of our land. And there's a doorway just across the road from where I live. And there's a stargate in the Yarra Valley as well as a vortex. So there's portals, vortexes and stargates, which are not all the same thing. They're actually three independent doorways.
Another question, is beach worth, and what sort of area is it? Is it in positive or negative?
I find that quite a nice, it's maybe boundary, like on the borderlines between, there's a bit of a neutral territory, like any other warring factions on the earth, there's always a neutral zone. So when I visited Bright, I found that sort of on borderline between the dark force and the light force, but I don't think I spent enough time there to get a better reading of the region.
Okay.
I can tell you that there was some very huge human beings that used to live on top of Mount Buffalo. They were 21 to 28 foot tall.
Uh-huh.
And they had a crystal pyramid there made of quartz. That was a three-sided pyramid that went about 200 metres into the sky. Once upon a time.
Okay. Are there any areas or suburbs in Melbourne where darkness lives that we should avoid?
In some of the higher echelons of the Upper Yarra, Warburton, going up to East Warburton, Mount Waa-Wurrung.
Are they the negative suburbs?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they belong to the dark forces, and don't have a right to exist here in this time frame as anyone else does. So, look, I've been sort of isolated within my own tribal region for the last 5 or 6 years because of geopolitical issues. But that's a very touchy subject with me and the system at the moment.
Okay.
If it's easy for people to read their memories by meditating through their heart space, and don't look at making contact with dark forces because they will find you and make contact. And interestingly enough, there's been places that have been made negative and transformed into negative by an invasive force, which is starting to become prevalent within the Melbourne region this year more than ever. So, by people meditating within their heart space, again, watching their tongue, never speak words of hate, never say the word hate, because that in itself is a negative that will anchor us to a lower vibration. And I've never ever told anyone that I hated them, ever. And a lot of people find that very confronting because most people hate and have hate in their hearts, but I try and teach people it's no good for us. It's no good for the individual human, and it's no good for the greater collective or the greater consciousness around us. It holds people back in a Because our fields affect each other and we tune to each other in them energy fields. So if we're hanging with shitty people, we're going to be feeling shitty. And if we're hanging with depressed people all the time, we're going to be depressed. And that's how we resonate and tune to each other, by being present with each other. So for someone to get a higher vibration is to find those who are vibrating high too, and come together and spend more time together.
Yep.
And if people go back to hanging with the negative side of humans who have wants, and I want this, I want that, and I'm not happy, and I hate this because I don't have that, and I want that, and straight away you're going to start to tune back to their frequency, and they're going to tune up a little bit to yours, but it's going to bring you down. So reject negativity around you. As much as we love other people around us in our lives, sometimes we just got to cut them loose and give them an ultimatum. Stop hating, stop this, stop that, or, move along. Otherwise, you're going to be affected from your own ascension process.
Yep. Okay. What kind of timeline are we talking for when the father will return?
Well, there was a question I saw come up on the laptop before about the magic box.
Oh, yes, that's a long one. Do you want me to read it? That's from Leanne. Do you know about the magic box? Stephen Strong suggests that it would take 200,000 people on the ground in Australia to activate the box. These people will need to be...
Box,
yep.
The box is what they call a ruse, if anyone knows what a ruse is. And a ruse is a sleight of hand. Because the magic box doesn't exist. It's actually an etherical item that will be activated during the process. I think it's quite a crazy idea that such physical items have such an important role to play in the ascension of man. That's why it's a ruse and a fallacy, because what they're really doing is actually activating a signal to invite the Father back to Earth. That's the real process that's going to happen there. And don't look outside for that information, look within. All the knowledge people need is within their own heart space and within their own spirit and within their own connection to the universe as a whole. And by finding out purpose means to find out tuning and where our spirit has its voice in the universe, and the universe means many or one songs. Verse is a song. So there's many songs that are one song. And the one song is our whole universal creatorship as a whole. And we are choirs in that creation. And one of the human choirs sings in G. That's the Kundalini energy. They're the singers, dress up in the red miniskirts and sing. And that goes for men too, but that's another. I like to throw a bit of humour in there just to keep it light, guys. But so we are a song's made up of 3-part harmonies. One from the celestial father, one frequency from the earth mother. Because when life is created within the greatest stargate of all, which is the womb of a woman on earth, is a stargate that brings souls into existence from another realm. And there needs to be like 2 keys activated, like you see in the movies, when 2 people got to put the keys in to activate something and they've got to turn at the same time. When the seed of man enters the egg of a woman, both of those biologies have their own independent life force. But when they come together as one, neither of those life forces are allowed to occupy the new territory, which is the union between the 2 entities. So they actually get kicked out of the biology. The seed no longer carries the masculine, and the egg no longer carries the feminine. They are withdrawn from that physical biology, and that physical biology is a neutrality, which is the inner child, the true you. And then ego becomes attached to that masculine feminine force, and they start to debate whether or not that new biology will be deemed a physical male or a physical female. And sometimes if that argument between them two life forces go over time, then the biology will make up its own mind and flick the switch to be a biological male or biological female. And if it's made up its mind because of its time frame to be a biological male, and then finally the feminine had won the debate to become the overseer and manipulator of this new life, and that's how we get homosexuality and bisexuality and people think that they are not natural processes, but they truly are universally natural. Because ego is a natural part of the human spirit, but it's been displaced during our time on the earth. And that secret was given to me by an old lady from the South Australian desert who spoke to me about the weather, but in her word was the true teachings. Now, when people communicate to you, it's not the word that is the carrier, that the word is a vehicle for a desire, which is the true communication. And that is one of the teachings of Wallace Black Elk, when he taught me that desire is the only true language in the whole universe. And intentions are not desires, they are two separate entities. Intention is actually a child of desire, and action is a child of intention. So desire comes before anything else. The earth desired us, and we desired an earth, and that's why we're all here at this point in time. It wasn't an intention, it was a desire. And soon on the earth, as our vibration rises, people speaking two different tongues are going to be able to understand each other, because throughout our ascension process, we will come to understand what desire truly is and how to utilize it to communicate across the board with different languages. So with two different languages, and the word is just a vehicle. What we want to see is the driver, so we'll understand the driver, not the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what will happen in the animal world as well, when we hear the chirping is just the carrier. We'll hear the desired communication from that bird and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Okay. John Paul has a question. I'm just going to try this. Did you want to ask Uluki your question directly?
Sure. So, hey, Uluki, thanks so much for talking to us tonight.
Hey, you're so welcome.
I sundanced with Wallace Black Elk on Pine Ridge Reservation, so we have that in common.
Beautiful.
My question is, when you were talking about the 7 creator spirits, I thought you said that they each have a geographical area that they looked after in Australia. Could you go over what those 7 areas are?
Yeah, well, if you look at Australia on a map, there's Uluru, or the heart of the earth, is right in the middle of the continent. And that spiritual creator there is androgynous, which means neither sex.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the hub of the other 3, which happens like an hexagram around that center being. So there's three going out from the north to down to the bottom of the west, and three that start at the top of Queensland and come down to the bottom.
Ah.
Now, I haven't been around enough to get the secrets of, because I know ours in the southeast is a feminine serpent, feminine rainbow being, feminine. And she actually has a name. Now, I don't know the actual full location or which territory belongs to which being in that process. But ours here, her name is Minday.
Oh, yeah.
And she's the serpent of the southeast, who was meant to come out of a mountain in central Victoria called Rainbow Mountain, of all names.
Right.
So no matter how hard the human psyche tries to get away from our creation, it's almost impossible. The memory is too strong within us all.
Okay.
But that also pertains to the rest of the earth. This is just a fractal or a prototype here that reverberated around the whole planet.
Mm.
Hopefully that's a reasonable answer. I'm not sure. But
Yeah. No, I just didn't know if they had absolute territories or whether they were a geometrical pattern. So thanks.
yeah, it's both and neither. It's also in a spiritual etherical sense that they are just one anyway.
Right.
And when they come together as one, in its origins, this is what the world will call the Christ energy.
Mm-hmm.
When them seven become one.
Okay.
And mother is the earth energy as a whole.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mother.
Does that answer your
names are
question?
just labels. It's you people get into their heart space and really wash away wants and any negatives out of our spiritual place, and we receive that information. People can access it freely through their heart space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cal?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yep.
There was mention of, what was it, some allocated areas for negative spirits around the country. Are they specific areas or are they just areas in general?
Yeah, I only just heard that. It was muffled a little bit.
I think it was the negative spirits.
There were allocated areas for them, spoken about earlier.
Okay. Are there allocated areas for the negative spirits, like specific
Yes, yeah.
places?
Could you give a list of them?
Yeah, can you name off some areas that are specifically allocated to the negative spirits? I thought we covered that, but
Well,
yeah.
he did talk about it, but I wasn't sure if they were specific places or just areas.
Yeah, are they specific places? Like, say, yep.
It's very hard one to try to explain, because my grandfather's people used to hunt and trap some very evil spirits who would torment children. And one of these beings was a very large shadow man that would appear to children in the night with big red glowing eyes. And this has become a more recent phenomenon in the Yarra Valley, because during the time of colonisation, there were certain mountains where my grandfather's people had used as a prison to trap these negative entities into, and they were using rock formations and crystals as locks to keep them in a certain region. And also consciousness and intention also was attached to those rocks and crystals as locks, because we can be very powerful beings once we're in tune. And so, yeah, Warburton is one of those areas. And I know people who live up in Warburton don't like it, but bad luck. They shouldn't be living there. And you can probably do like a 3D research where you find locations where there's lots of bad shit goes down on an ongoing basis.
What about Black Mountain in Queensland?
Sorry, what was that?
Violence and addictions.
Sorry, Kel, what was that?
Black Mountain in Queensland.
Black Mountain in Queensland?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's more of a interdimensional.
Yeah.
Because there's areas where there was negative and like actually captured spirits that was locked away, but there's also interdimensional regions where it was no man's country, no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
And,
What
people would never go in there.
What about Sydney? Is there any
that's
negative?
Bad place even now. It's look, no doubt there'll be positive and negative aspects there too. That unless someone's in tune there, then places may have been sort of lost to history. But again, just find the areas that have a very negative past in this 3D world, where constant badness and bad things happen on a human level, and that'll be the spot where we're not meant to occupy it, because them humans there are struggling with reality and struggling with possessions and attachments to negativity. And we just had a very, very sad event just recently up here in the Yarra Valley, which was to do with what we're just talking about, and that was with a young 14-year-old boy.
Mm.
And he was a victim of such circumstance, to do the negatives out there.
Mm-hmm. Can you share more about Mount Buffalo?
Well, yeah, Mount Buffalo was a reason, because one time in our past, people talk about giants, and sometimes it's hard to try and recollect whether those giants were separate entities to us, or we lived as the giants during a reincarnation of a period of Earth that had a lighter gravity field that allowed us to grow massively. And also there's an ancient pyramid there that's still in the rock formation. And if you go up there and have a look around, you'll find that there's very large rocks placed on top of little rocks, which is a very unusual natural displacement of rocks. I done an interview with Peter Maxwell-Slovery there about 3 years ago, and part of the interview was underneath a rock called Leviathan, I think it was, which is a rock the size of a house, balanced on about 4 square metres at the base. But there was a huge crystal pyramid structure that not only went up to the sky about 250 metres, but it went into the earth, and it was a crystalline structure, much like not fluorine, but something similar to that. And it was a 3-sided pyramid, it wasn't 4. And this country's covered in pyramids. This place had a pyramid existing lifestyle in the previous time frame. When I said that, it was Wallace Black Elk who taught me that this is our 4th reality, humans have lived through. And during the third reality, this country was covered in pyramids. And a lot of that is still, the evidence is still on the land itself, like the geographical locations. One of those places is Mount Piper outside of Broadford, where there was an actual earthquake just recently. But Mount Piper is hollow inside. And it's a big, you can see it if you're travelling down the Union Freeway from coming south, apparently you can look out to the left as you're coming down and see the pyramid off in the distance.
Chloe, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I didn't really have a question, but I just said that there's the Gosford hieroglyphics there, and that I'm just curious about what Uluki would like to say about that area. With the,
Yeah, was that Chloe, was it?
yeah. Hi Uluki, yeah. So the Gosford hieroglyphics.
We're learning about the glyphs up there.
Yeah.
I first learned about glyphs in Australia in 1996.
Wow.
But I didn't know nothing about the Gosford ones. I got told about the ones in the Yarra Valley.
Okay.
There was 2 sites in the Yarra Valley where there's glyphs, and actually I'm about to find the second location and get shown where it is.
Yeah.
The first site that I learnt about the glyphs, I was living in a house in Hillsville in the Yarra Valley, and I had a beautiful 4-legged son. It was my canine son, and he had someone bailed up at my door at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when I answered the door, there was this tiny little skinny man, big. It looked like he had a 80s rocker, big curly hair, like he just had it permed.
Wow.
And when I answered the door, I got my 4-legged son away from him and I asked him what he wanted. And this man turned and said to me, "I'm looking for Brendan." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Brendan Murray?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I was told if I come here, you would look after me." And I said, "Who told you that?" And he said, "You wouldn't understand." I said, "I don't know you, so I can't let you in. I don't even know who you are." And then he said to me, "Do you know Mont Park?" And I said, "Yes." And Mont Park, as some of the older generation might know, was a mental institution in Melbourne. And he said that he had escaped from this institution at 9 o'clock the night before, and he ended up on my door at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he said the spirits that talked to him and had him locked up, while his parents actually locked him up because he was communicating with spirit, that these voices had told him my name and brought him to my door. So that answered that question when I said, "Who told you?" And when he said, these voices tell me things and they told me your name and they brought me here, I couldn't argue. Because how could I, He was quite happy to tell me he escaped from the institution and he hears voices. And I said, "That's okay." I took him inside and made him a cup of tea and I made him breakfast and was talking about my kitchen table early in the morning, and he first said to me, "The spirits that talk to me want me to tell you about a cave that's underneath the water of Maroondah Dam. And in that cave is all Egyptian writing and many other things, but they only explained to him about the writing." And that was the first information about Egyptian technology here. The glyphs underneath the water of Maroondah Dam, and that was in 1996. And also, do members of the audience there believe in dragons?
Yes.
Because
Yes,
we
yes, yes.
dragon,
Yes.
story in the Yarra Valley as well. The beast, we call it a beast, but she's more than that. She's a wonderful, benevolent dragon that's here to help. And she's in this reality, she's not from another dimension or doesn't come through dimensions. She's actually lives in the water of Maroondah Dam. And the corporations hate me telling people this. They use frequency devices aimed at the water to stop her surfacing, and they work out how to annoy her. But what they haven't worked out is how to subdue her, to have her serve their purposes on the earth. She's here to assist humanity in freeing us from the bonds of negative, just evil as a whole, I guess.
Wow.
So the Gosford Glyphs, it's just one of many sites. And there's also another site at Lilydale where there's Egyptian glyphs, which I'm about to get shown. I'm just trying to find the man who's going to show me.
Great.
But also there's an old ancient Roman well in the suburb of Melbourne. I'm trying to research which suburb it is, but it's dated about 5,000 years too, or 4,000 years old. A Roman well.
Wow.
Hi, Uluki. I was just wondering, where does the Kundalini fit into this model of the spirit world?
Well, look, I'm sort of trying to get my head around what people call the Kundalini. Maybe you can help me now with that.
Well, it's we've been told that the human body has 4 bodies, and the spirit body, the grossest of the spirit bodies interpenetrates the human body, and it's where the centers of energy, the 7 centers of energy, are located.
Yeah, because I've had people try and tell me about that before, but they attach serpent energy, but not positive serpent energy, to the Kundalini process, and attached to the base chakra. So
Yes.
that's why I sort of stayed away from wanting to know about the base chakra technology. But the way you explained it then was a bit more open and a spiritual process to what other people have tried to explain it to me. So it's from the base chakra to the crown chakra, from the bottom to the top. So there are 7 levels of consciousness. Yeah, well, you know, and they call it. It's often referred to. 1,0.3 higher levels of consciousness. And it's the same with the Trinity, which is us as well. So there's the 7 levels that you mentioned of consciousness, that they are entwined in another level of 3, where to do with our 3D reality, which is the consciousness that we're operating in right now at this present time on the phone and on the computers, communicating in this 3D reality. There's our subconscious, which is, as you know, a part of us which is more subliminal, and a higher consciousness. And from what I understand, just recently there's been a shift in the subconscious of humanity, where our consciousness can be invaded on all levels. I've been invaded myself on a conscious level, where once we know about the universe within, and we sit inside that universe within, that other beings can actually enter into that universe within. So So on a subconscious level, there's beings that have come through onto our earth plane and are attached to the subconscious, to the different symphonies of humans, to start clearing out these negative parasites that have attached to the human subconsciousness and start clearing them out, because they're just a parasite that shouldn't be inside this consciousness of humans. They were brought here and placed there. So I'm not sure if that was but again, what happens in our subconscious comes through to our consciousness and to help us gain more knowledge for our higher consciousness, which is
I think, Melanie, you were talking about, I think you the base chakra kind of technology where you raise the kundalini up to the crown chakra. But that's the chant when the kundalini is awakened. That's it rises up from the base chakra upwards, but it doesn't necessarily go to in one path for everyone. It sort of can go to various centers of spiritual energy along the way. But I was just wondering how that energy fitted into this this reality that you were talking, that Uluku was talking about. That's what I was.
There's a famous artist named Uluki, L-O-O-B-Y. That was a very esoteric and tapped-in artist, an old white Australian artist. I believe he was Australian, but all his paintings and images are from here. Now, he was tapped into that people would call kundalini, but no doubt here there's all different words and all the different languages for the same thing, for the same belief structure or process. Now, Luby done a lot of stuff. It was a lot because our primal urge comes out of those base levels, out of the base chakra to the stomach, which is our intuition, and into the solar plexus before it gets to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the primal reality that was needed to occur in order for us to co-create and keep living on the earth. Otherwise, if everyone became a monk, there would be no co-creation, and that would be the end of humanity. So, that was all to keep the primal urges of man around in order to co-create.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the ancient trees. Can you share anything about some of the ancient trees of our country?
Living or deceased.
The question is about the fact that so many trees are sharing things with us now. And so there's so many beautiful old ancient trees. I wonder if in your tradition or your culture or history, if there's any connection to ancient trees or wisdom from those trees.
Yeah, well, me and my family had become in grave danger about 5 years ago. And I was heavily protected by the 7 spirits of creation. But I was living on the border of a negative territory. And I wanted to fight to keep my family safe and keep them in a house. But there was one specific tree and it was a very feminine energy and communication, and she spoke to me and said that you are no longer safe, your family is not safe, we cannot protect you anymore. You need to move along and find somewhere where you can be protected. And that was one of my first communications in openness with our tree relatives and our conscious family. There's also very specific trees in the Yarra Valley that are very ancient and mystical. But life as a whole now is becoming very communicatable. That's because our desires have changed on the earth and are getting heightened. So when I talked about people talking two different languages before, when I say people, I mean the two-legged people, the four-legged people, the finned people, the winged people, the hard people, meaning the trees, because we're all people, and the word humanity actually applies to all living life on the earth, not just bipedal humans. So we are all people, trees, grasses and insects and rabbits.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of two-legged rabbits, I must admit.
Are there minotaurs as well?
Well, yes, and they're starting to come through this reality a bit more and more. I was actually involved with trying to cleanse some attachment and possessions with a friend of my partner's who was struggling with trauma and attachments. And I've actually come to discover that there is an AI entity that can actually possess people as well. That there's some kind of AI on the earth now that can take control of certain antennas around the place and can tune its communication down to the same frequency as the human brain and then start to invade the human brain and the human mind. And these things can only affect you if you don't have a strong heart space and allow the light to come from within. And upwards from the base as well, shoot upwards and out. And this woman was speaking to me in a very robotic fashion and structured the sentences as like I was talking to Siri or Alexa. But around her house one night, I come out in the morning and we found the minotaur's footprints in the mud outside. They were like cow hooves that had very sharp points to the front. They looked like teardrops, that's how sharp they were to the front on each side. And when we found the footprints in the mud, there was only 2, there wasn't 4, as a cow should walk. And you could feel it that this entity had been there, and it had that minotaur or that Baphomet feeling, if anyone knows what Baphomet is, or that entity, which is the goat man. But this was more like it had cow feet than goat feet. But also in the mud, just behind it and around it, and even on the concrete, was the markings of a small horse that was shoed with iron shoes. That was very small, like too small to be what we call a modern horse. But so when an event like this occurred, it leaves an energy print that you can read. And in that you get an image, and not so much sound, but you can get an image out of the energy print that's left in this 3D world. So the energy print we read was that this minotaur beast she's attached to this house and this woman who were trying to help. And this thing was hanging around her house, but there was also some kind of light being or a hero on a horse that was chasing it and hunting it. That was on a little horse that had iron shoes, because we could see the iron shoe marks on the concrete as it chased these other footprints. And that was recently, that was 6 weeks ago, maybe.
Did you get rid of the AI entity from that woman?
No, well, it was a very sad series of events where she ended up having a turn for the worse, and she was constantly stripping down naked and running out onto the road screaming that she's been attacked. And she was coming and going from this reality to another reality where we'd get her settled for a day or two, and she'd wake up asking if she was real or if we was real, if anything around her was real. And it got to the point where we could no longer help her. She needed to be settled. Firstly, and I don't agree with the way things operate in the psychological or the psychiatric industry. And as a base, there is some elements that they use, such as chemicals like lithium, which can just quieten down and shut down the consciousness a little bit, so that these entities can no longer come through and manipulate the vessel too much.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, just a one about the December 21st, 2020. Any significance there that we need to know about that has been talked about with the Uluru conference? That there's something happening, something big happening in Uluru, December 21st, 2020.
Well, about 6 years ago, I first met Stephen Strong at an event in Melbourne. And during that event, I admired what he was talking about and trying to teach the world. When he finished that presentation at the Darebin City Council halls there, I got up on the stage and met him and embraced him and thanked him for his work. And then I whispered some stuff to him just to really put a spinner in his works, which was that 6 years ago I told him that there was going to be an event happening at the Rock that I wasn't too sure about, but it was a celestial event.
Right.
And 2020 was the year it was going to happen. And that was just intuition and the spirit speaking. And I know during that time frame, especially after the 2012 scenario, people stopped giving timelines and dates because they were frightened of being made liars of or being wrong.
Yeah.
We knew that 2020 was going to be a very significant year. And so what's occurring up in the desert is ceremonies to draw the connection between our earthly mother, our celestial queen, and our celestial father. To put it lightly, he's coming and he's very pissed off. And and our mother's going to protect us from that.
Mm.
Because she had the opportunity to leave a long time ago when there was a great angelic celestial person that come onto our earth to take her away, to manifest her into a rainbow obsidian body and take her away. And what that would have meant was once she left the earth was going to die, meaning all of us and all nature at the same time. Just dissipate into nothingness. But she refused to leave. She told these beings, I will not abandon my children. So she stayed here knowing that she was going to have all these negative attacks against her and against us. Now we'll have to witness her being devastated, and she'll have to witness us being devastated on spiritual levels. And that's what all that trauma is you know, it's us witnessing her going through hell and it's her witnessing us going through hell. And it becomes like a synergy or a loop. But that time is coming to a close on the earth. But now she is singing out to our celestial father, and he is coming. And we've been asked to clean up the consciousness of our planet before our celestial father arrives. Otherwise, because remember before I spoke about 9 serpents that come to the earth, 7 were creator beings. The white serpent was pure love and light, and she lay dormant in the earth. And the black serpent, because the rainbows can only exist between the borders of light and dark, or shadow and light. Because every shadow bears a rainbow on its edges between it and the light. So there were 7 rainbows placed between a black serpent and a white serpent, or white creator being and a black creator being. But the black one is known as a destroyer. And it has capacity to wipe this planet clear completely. And that will be activated if enough of us don't get our proverbial shit together now and to live a more love and compassionate life in servitude to each other's spiritual place on our earth. If we don't do that, which is, we've already passed that number, that's why we don't do the 200,000 people number thing, because we're already well beyond that.
Yeah.
The numbers are massive. More than what people will admit to. Because secretly people are wanting this and loving this, but they're not going to tell anyone. They fear judgment. But so we're well above the quota for that. And the box is it's not a real box. It's an idea or an etherical or spiritual item that will be activated through the calling of our mother to reunify with her father.
Mm-hmm. Do you know much about the whales beaching themselves?
There is a lot of movement in the energies in the magnetic fields of the earth, but that could be coming from naval experiments down there, or there's an upset in the ley line structure that passes through the ocean. So somebody's been a blockage in the ley line, which is throwing off their sonar and their perception of the world around them. It's like us walking blind along a cliff's edge, walking with a blindfold on.
Okay.
So it's very sad, but those things are going to be corrected. All things will be corrected on our earth, and humans are deserving of the golden age and are deserving to live on this world, just not all of them. The new world won't be for everyone, but it will be for a slight majority. That's all we really need, is a slight majority to get the whole planet across the line. And thank our mother for defending us, because she sacrificed for us on many levels. And now we must do the same.
Right.
So we sacrifice through correcting our thought process, no longer have many wants. Don't even say I want, and don't say I hate, because they are manifestations that remove us from our beginnings, which is the tuning of our songs, so we can sing in tune with our mother.
Beautiful.
I was just reflecting on that story of the woman that you were helping to heal, and I was wondering, because of a lot of Native American or shamanic tribes, they talk about soul loss, so calling the spirit back from trauma, from different realms. And I wondered if that woman, if that was a part of her trauma, was the soul loss. Yeah.
I think she was suffering from, well, as many of us do, from some form of past life trauma. This poor lady has suffered greatly in this world.
Yeah.
Probably at the hands of her father.
Yeah.
And at the hands of her mother as well. And never fully, come to accept that and forgive them in order for herself to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is great power.
Hi.
Thank you for that.
Hi. Just wondering if you're able to share any knowledge about any trauma and Pine Gap.
Well, that's it's multi-layered, multi-leveled. Most of these establishments are built very close to high-end celestial activity. Where it's easier for them to communicate and bring through different entities from different dimensions. Because that's where it naturally occurs anyway, but then they tune it so they can actually bring through whatever they want to bring through. But there's a very similar establishment just outside of Lake Mungo in New South Wales, which is another underground establishment just as big as Pine Gap that very few people know about. They have nukes at both of these establishments. Actually, there's 7 major establishments built underground in this country. This is as impressive as Pine Gap. But yeah, the trauma. Our trauma is our mother's trauma, and our mother's trauma is our trauma. And through forgiveness, we forgive those actions that caused that trauma, and also learning how to not take things too personal either. As a child, I saw people do the most horrid things to each other. And I knew that was not the real humanity. I understood that there was something that wasn't right. There was just a disconnect or possession almost of these people who were causing so much harm to each other that I witnessed as a child. So I understood that as a child, that not to take these things too personal, and that the horrid things that I saw was not the true humanity, it was not the true people that I saw, that something else had become attached. So I learned and that's how I guess I had to deal with my own trauma after watching such actions of man against each other. Particularly with family violence in this country. And the attachment that's, like the generational trauma that, it happened to me, so, I done it, all that weak cop-out sort of stuff. If there's something not right in a family or a community, we fix it and correct it and not let it be passed to the next generation, because that's just passing the trauma forward or paying the trauma forward and not allowing the next generation to surpass us in any way, which every generation should. We are meant to be smarter, better, more spiritual than the previous generation, and so forth should our children be smarter, better, and all things greater than us. And who are we to hold them back from that? Just like who are our parents to hold us back from that as well? They were just repeating the trauma from their parents, and And that talk, you know, when kids start talking about things that they're communicating and speaking with in turn, say, no, it's not real, don't be silly, you know, and actually condition us out of understanding our universal reality around us, because it wasn't cool. It wasn't socially accepted.
Right, thanks. Maybe one or two more questions. And yeah, but I'd love to organise, yeah, to see those what you were talking about, the glyphics.
Yeah, well, one set of glyphs are underwater, protected by a very majestic dragon.
I'd love to.
So,
yeah.
My partner was lucky enough to see her one day.
Oh, wow.
And I saw the water move, but I didn't get to see what made it move. But she's very real, very alive, and very majestic.
Okay.
Very powerful.
I'd love to get in touch with, meet her. Yeah, someone spoke to me about that he saw a UFO go into the Moondah Dam and go out of it, and then something like a Bigfoot following him afterwards.
Yeah, there is a stargate in a cave there. There was a massive cave, which was the dragon's lair. And that was the cave that the man who escaped the institution was telling me about. But he didn't know about the dragon that lived there. He just knew about the Egyptian markings on the wall.
Yep.
Also in the back of that cave is a stargate. And there may have been some emerald tablets, or one of the emerald tablets may have was in there as well.
Yep.
Because when I spoke about the event where the Celestial Father and the Celestial Mother had created the songs of humanity for co-creation, it was at that site underneath the water of Marina Dam. But at that time, the Yarra Valley was a big lake.
Yep. Wow.
And the lake might have gone as far out to the top of Tasmania.
Yeah.
Because there was a big land bridge on the east and the west coast of Tasmania, come right up to join into Victoria.
Uh-huh. Wow. Interesting, yeah. I'm just aware of the time, so I think people are getting tired. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Uluki, for sharing so much.
And I hope the audience got something out of it.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for so much generosity.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to all these people, or what?
Yep. Yeah, they're all saying goodbye.
Well, goodbye, people.
Bye.
Good talk.
See you later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Feel free to communicate
Bye.
anytime, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Bye.
passion.
Bye.
Bye. All have a good night.
Good night. Bye.
Stay positive.
Great.